G'day there, my name is Ozysturm, a country Victorian gamer of Star Wars Armada, Star Wars Legion, X-Wing, Dystopian Wars, Flames of War, Battletech, many other games. Today I start a new project and a new chapter or playlist in my YouTube channel of painting, dressing, assembling some new models that I have just received. Now, this is to an old game system that I have played and still enjoy playing on occasion. But this is for a friend of mine who unfortunately has been unable to paint them at all. So, without further ado, this right here, and unfortunately you'll be reading it backwards, is called Dystopian Wars. It is done by a company by the name of Warcradle. Previously, it was done by a company called Spartan Games. Now, I got into this game quite a while back when it was under Spartan Games banner, and for quite a while, I was one of my local area's representative, or a volunteer representative for that game system. Therefore, going out to things like conventions, or going out to do tournaments or demonstration play games for Spartan Games product. And at the time they had a number of games. They had Dystopian Wars, Dystopian Legion, Firestorm Armada. They were just getting into Halo, both Ground Command and Fleet Command versions. And really it was a great time for them. Then, unfortunately, they had some issues, financial issues, and had to sell off some of their IPs and had to declare bankruptcy, pretty much. It caused a lot of players to move away from it and go into other games. Myself, I went into more of the Star Wars Armada area, but I still kept all my Dystopian Wars stuff in the hopes that it would be picked up by another company and then grow on, which in this case it did. It was bought by a company called Warcradle, and they further developed it. They merged the idea of Dystopian Legion with their own skirmish game in the same scale of 32mm, I believe, called Wild West Exodus, which basically similar situation. It was in a pre-industrial era, well, just after the industrial era of the world sort of thing, but rather than relying heavily on the likes of petrochemical and all of manufacturing and stuff like that, there is that mysticism. There is also this mysterious element that comes into play in Wild West Exodus and also into Dystopian Wars. So they did merge the two, sort of Dystopian and also Wild West Exodus, to fit into the same universe in many ways. And all up, from what I've heard, it has been a rather good success. Now, getting back to this box. This box is called Sturginium Skies. It is a 2-player. It has both Crown, which is your typical British Empire at the time, led by Queen Victoria, and also Prussia, which is led by King Frederick or something or other at the time. So this is set pretty much a little bit after the Neapolitan War. You can think of the turn of the century. Dystopian Wars is a tabletop game of naval battles using highly detailed miniatures to represent huge engines of destruction on, above and below the high seas. Set in an alternate late 19th century called the Dystopian Age, super science-fueled nations clash over resources and power. Pick your faction and fight for dominance over the seas and skies with incredible machines fueled by extraordinary technology, dread marvels of the dystopian age. That is pretty much from the first page, and it's the first thing you read from the dystopian age wars rulebook. What does that all mean, though? What that means is that in the 19th century, or just prior to the 19th century, a group of scientists travelled from England to Antarctica. There, they discovered a mineral, not of this world. And the lead scientist called it element 270. Everyone else in the actual party started calling it after the scientist itself, called Professor Sturgeon. Sturgius or something or other. Anyway, they started calling it Sturgeonium. Now this special element, when combined with other normal occurring elements in the Earth, made things a lot more efficiency. When it's combined with magnetism, it created a way of repelling gravity. When it was combined with brass, it made it super, super strong. When combined with coal, it made it super efficient and clean. All of this technology was there at that dawn of the 19th century that allowed things to be built in a quicker fashion, in more robust ways of doing things that still kept the ethicist of the previous generations. It also meant that the military, looking at it, covered it with glee and really wanted to grab hold of all of it for themselves, for their separate nations. That meant a lot of people started looking for it and found deposits all over the world in different places. Some for good, some for rather nefarious purposes. It also meant that a lot of nations were eyeing this burgeoning nation of Antarctica and coveting it with their own military, causing the Antarcticans, who called themselves the Covenant or Enlightened, to say, no, we want to use this purely for science. And they basically cut off the supply. But by that time, the cat was out of the bag. Nations already had small amounts of it and were able to find it in their own nations on their own. They were also able to develop weapons and things from the technology that was already given to them by the Antarcticans in a non-destructive way, like helping to reduce the deserts in Africa, or help speed the flow of transportation from one side of the earth to another into military applications. And basically it started off a whole series of wars. Now, Spartan Games created about 3 books and 1 PDF of campaign. They're a great book to read, all 4 of them if you can find them. War Cradle, unfortunately, has not yet developed much in the way of resource books. However, they have done a number of 2-player starter sets. They have done a couple of primary naval ones where you're fighting Prussian versus British, Antarcticans versus Americans. You've got Japanese versus other nations, Covenant, Russia versus Prussia, a whole heap of them. In my link description below, you will see a link to the War Cradle website if you would like to find out more. But getting back to where I am. So I bought into some of the models from the Spartan era. And I've also bought into the War Cradle era stuff. But I haven't gone all in because I've got heaps. But I'm just going to now cut to another video. And I'm going to show you what I've got already. Just a small sampling to show you the shapes of the ships. And most of these are from Spartan, but I will point out a couple from my Chinese faction that are from War Cradle. And you'll clearly see the difference between them, as I'll have some Spartans right next to the War Cradle ones. And you'll see what I plan to do for my friend, for his Prussians that are in this starter box set that I'll show you shortly. So, hold on. So, starting off here in the corner is my Enlightened or Covenant of Antarctica. Now, all 4 or 5 of these models are from the Spartan range. You can see they have very slick lines in terms of how they are shaped, and this has been also portrayed in the War Cradle era stuff as well, with their weapons ports being mainly round, very minimal in the way of superstructure, very clean lines, if lines at all, and very well shaped. Over the back here is my Chinese. Now, these 3 right here are from the War Cradle age. I mean, from Spartan Games age. These ones here are the new War Cradle. And as you can see, up close, they have very much the same architectural style, which is why I picked them as my main faction nowadays. But you can see the added detail that they've gone into going forward from the Spartan age. All the turrets are able to be magnetized. It's something that I always try and do. And you notice that I use a lot of the bronze terracotta look for the Chinese. They are part of a nation or a group of nations that have aligned themselves into what's called the Empire. But I primarily like the Chinese ships, as they almost look like floating cities. I also have a small selection of British, as well as some Australian models that came out at the time. You'll notice with the British ships that were done by Spartan Games that they very much look like the old Dreadnought class ships from the World War I and prior eras. Twin stacks quite a lot of the time, very prominent. Middle bridge showing, very blocky. That has been retained in the new series as well, but with a lot less of this front superstructure. They've thinned it down a little bit, which is nice. Made it a little bit more compact. The British will probably end up being my second faction that I will do, and I'll explain why that will probably be my second faction in a few minutes. But lastly is these guys, which is the Prussian Empire. As you can see, they've got the Teutonic flag on the front of their battleship. Very clean lines. They use a lot of what they call Tesla technology. In other words, the technology of electricity from Nikola Tesla. And this coloration is what my friend is wanting me to do with his Prussians that I'm going to have in this two-player set. He wants dark grey superstructure, but then an even darker wood colouring panel, bronzes for the electronic weaponry or lightning weaponry, while gunmetal for the more ballistic weapons. And of course he's given me permission to do a little bit of filigree with the numbers and other things that I want to do on the ships. So let's have a look at the two-player set that I just got. So this is a monster of a box. You get quite a lot of models in this of different scales for two different factions. The first faction is your Prussians, where you've got a large Zeppelin, a couple of medium Zeppelins, a lot of smaller size blimps, a couple of cruisers and 4 frigates, as well as some flying tokens at the bottom of it. All up, enough to actually start a full game of this system. Also, you've got in the box is your British. The British have a squadron of medium flyers, large flyers, a lot of medium ones, flyers as well, some cruisers and attack subs. These ones I have been informed I get to keep as part of my commission on painting his entire Prussian army. So not only this, but his other Prussian stuff that he's going to give me in the next couple of weeks. This means I will be starting a new force afterwards of the British stuff. In the box itself, it also comes with your tokens, your rule books, rulers, dice, which is characteristic of War Cradle, that it is a D6, but it has not got the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's got hit, double hit, miss, critical miss, etc. And you've got Valor cards. Now, the Valor cards have 3 purposes. One, it gives you a victory condition, so extra points to win by. Valor, which gives you basically an immediate effect that you can do, like an instant from Magic the Gathering, or an enhancement that you can do. The other thing is in the top corners, you'll see a number. That is your initiative number. That is how you work out who is first player per turn. And it's like playing poker. So you get to choose which number that you use out of a hand of, I think, 5 cards, unless you've got a command ship that allows you a 6th card. But you get to choose which card to use for your initiative. You can't use it for anything else other than that initiative, so it will go away. But you get to put that down, flip it up. If you're at the higher number, you get to go first. Sometimes it's advantage. Again, you've got the measuring tokens. They're slightly different than a normal ruler in that it's got wedges to actually have inch movement. All up, really, really good set, and I really enjoy it. So the wrapping's off. As you can see, it's all in a nice black box. The War Cradle Studios logo. Nice big thick box. Inside the rules. Campaign guide. Tokens. Then we have tons and tons of plastic. You can almost see pretty much all of that's plastic. On sprues. And you've got some bases here as well, so yeah, that'll be very nice to go through. I'm not sure if this is organized in any particular way. I'll have to dig through it and have a look. But once I have dug through it and sorted out what I have for myself and what I have for my mate to do, I will do another video. But this doesn't mean that I'm not doing any Star Wars Legion, though. I do have my Fleet Troopers on its way, as well as Sabine Wren on her way as well to me. Both are unpainted, and I will be doing more videos on them coming up once I receive them. Beyond that, I have successfully pledged an amount of money to go towards the latest BattleTech Kickstarter, which will be nice, and I will be getting some mechs, vehicles, fighter jet, Viscoth fighter, I believe it's called, and a 4-inch Timberwolf very much later on in the year, which I may do some painting of as well. But for now, I have got a few things to do. So please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment. If you've got anything that you want to ask me, certainly ask. If you live in country Victoria, please drop me a line. Or alternatively, you can go to Facebook and take a look at my local gaming group called Badger on Facebook, which is BADGA, stands for Bendigo and District Gamers Association. And we do have a fair bit of a community of gamers of Star Wars Armada, Flames of War, Dystopian, like I've said, as well as we're slowly getting into the Star Wars Legion stuff as well. But for now, from me, I will bid you adieu and have a great day. Bye for now.